about 45 million pounds of chips in a quarter. That equates to about 200 million pounds of potatoes, which is quite a few. What's interesting with M&T is they're a small town bank, and as we've grown, they've also grown with us. They've got the resources that you would need in order to go big, but they also have that friendly local community feel so that it makes it seem easier than it probably is.
Hello, welcome to Candidates Up Front. This series of interviews with candidates on the November 3rd general election ballot is brought to you by Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County. Both organizations are nonpartisan. That means we never support candidates nor political parties. But both organizations consider it their mission to provide voters with information about each election. I'm Judith Cranus, a member of the League. First, if you are not yet registered to vote, go to votespa.com to register. Votespa.com is in English and in Spanish, and though you have until October 19th to register, the smart thing is, do it now. If you do not want to stand in line on Election Day, apply for a mail-in ballot. Again, go to votespa.com. Do it now. When your ballot arrives, mail it right away. We help our Berks County Elections Office handle this election smoothly if we are timely. And if you choose to go to your polling place on Election Day, polls are open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. This year, we vote for Pennsylvania Attorney General, Auditor General, and Treasurer. We will also elect representatives to the U.S. Congress, to the Pennsylvania Senate, and the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. The League and BCTV invited all but the statewide candidates to be interviewed. Some did not reply, some declined. Those who agreed will be asked the same questions in the same order with the same time limits as others running for the same office. These interviews will be available on BCTV's webpage and YouTube channel. And if you watch the interviews of two competing candidates, you can compare their answers to make your decision on how you will vote. This interview is for United States Representative in Congress in the 9th District. And I do believe we have a map to go up. There we go. This district is northern Berks County. As you can see, it is most of the county. Now, Congress is the legislative branch of our national government. It has two houses, the Senate and House of Representatives. Representatives serve a 2-year term. They propose and pass federal laws. The number of voting representatives in the House is fixed by law at no more than 435, proportionately representing the population of the 50 states. Pennsylvania currently has 18 representatives. The salary for a U.S. representative is $174,000 plus benefits and expenses. The two candidates for the 9th District are Gary Wegman, Democrat, and Don Muser, the Republican. This interview is with Gary Wegman. He is the challenger. Welcome, Mr. Wegman.
Good afternoon, Judith. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We'll begin with our first question. Why do you want to serve in Congress, and what are your qualifications for this position?
Okay, well, I'm a lifelong resident of Berks County. I've served as a dentist for over 37 years, and along with my wife and 3 children, we own and operate a 5th-generation 100-acre farm in the Ole Valley. In the almost 40 years of serving as a healthcare professional, I've seen a marked increase in the number of patients that I treat that can no longer afford the health care that they need for themselves and or for their families. And the truth of the matter is the cost of prescription medications and healthcare premiums have risen astronomically over the course of my lifetime working in healthcare. This has to change. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing a willingness from the people we've elected to represent us in Congress to bring forth legislation to address the myriad of issues that are plaguing our healthcare system. So I'm running for Congress to help address and reform healthcare.
And what are the three most important things you want to accomplish?
Well, as you will hear from me down the road, healthcare fixes a lot of things, but I also want to address our public education system, and I have some ideas for structural reform in education, and I also hope to bring about significant investment in infrastructure to the 9th District to help to create living wage jobs for all the people who live and work in our 9th District.
The pandemic continues. Has our federal government responded appropriately, and should it do more? Explain.
Well, it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. However, there are some lessons that we should have learned previously, and one of the most important is if we are going to call ourselves the United States of America, then we need to act like that. We need to act in unison. We need to have a unified message from the top down when we're dealing with a worldwide pandemic. So trying to scapegoat the WHO or call it the Chinese virus does not really give us a significant assistance in dealing with the myriad issues that we have with this problem. We need to recognize that the virus doesn't stop at the border and it doesn't stop at the school door. We have to address this problem with messaging that is clear, concise, and uniform, no matter who is speaking it from our government entities.
The African Americans, Latinos, and other minorities have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. What do you see as the explanation for this disparity, and what remedies would you propose?
Well, again, we're talking about healthcare, Judith, and unfortunately in America, so much of our healthcare system is coupled to your employment. And the communities of color serve disproportionately in a lot of the businesses that were adversely impacted by the COVID pandemic, businesses that had to close down completely. And therefore, a lot of these people lost their health care benefits because if they weren't working, then they were no longer covered. This has to change, and we'll get into that when we discuss healthcare a little bit further down the road. The other thing is the concept of prevention and preventative care. And a lot of the people in the poor communities in America do not have the types of healthcare preventive services that several other people who live in neighborhoods with more wealth are afforded. So we need to bring about a healthcare system that serves everybody equitably.
Is our health system as a whole working well, or does it need change? And if you feel it needs change, would you advocate minor changes or major changes?
Absolutely major changes, Judith. We need structural reform here to healthcare. It is too expensive. And when you listen to people in government talk about healthcare, far too often they're talking about the symptoms of the problem and not the actual problems that are causing the cost to be too high. We need to elect people in Congress that are not going to be beholden to special interests, but will actually, like myself as a doctor who's been trained to identify the problem and to treat the problem. And so with regards to accessibility and affordability, this is where the problems are. We have to change administrative costs, and we can do this without upsetting the apple cart. I don't want a socialized medical system. I want our private doctors and hospitals to compete in the private sector.
Now a two-part question. Do you support allowing Medicare to negotiate prices directly with drug manufacturers? And what's your plan to lower prescription drug costs?
I would say, yes, I support allowing Medicare to negotiate pricing, but it doesn't stop there. This isn't fair for all Americans. So we can't be subsidizing the rest of the planet for the price of medications. We need to allow the government to negotiate the price of prescription drugs with the pharmaceutical industry, just as we currently allow the VA to do on behalf of our veterans. If it's good enough for our veterans, it should be good enough for everyone who's on Medicare, in private insurance, paying fee for service for things. This is the way that we have to change things to allow monopoly, which is what a big pharma has with regards to their patents on prescription medications. We have to address that with the power of our legislative branch.
What should be done to prevent evictions and address homelessness during this pandemic?
Well, we have to have the government target its ability to assist renters or homeowners with their rental payments or their mortgage payments. It can't be just giving money and allow them to do with it as they please. We have to target the release of aid from our government to specific uses, whether it's for medications, school tuition payments, rental payments, or mortgage payments. And we need to step up as a government and do that until such a time as we have good therapies and treatments to be able to contain or control this virus from wreaking the havoc that it has up until now.
Do you favor changes to Social Security, either the benefits or the funding process? And please explain.
Yeah, I think we have to pay attention to the fact that we have fewer people paying in than taking out. So there are some ideas that make sense that I think everybody can support. And the one that comes immediately to mind is a concept called raising the cap, where presently we're capping the amount of income that can be taxed for Social Security somewhere in the vicinity of $125,000. I don't know if I even want to put a cap on income with regards to paying for Social Security. If you've had the fortune to be able to earn the kind of income that brings you wealth of over $150,000, $200,000 or more, then paying into the Social Security system, I think, is a good idea. And then on the back end, we can look at maybe not taking out more from Social Security than you've put in, if you're over a certain level of wealth and total wealth in your existence. So these are ideas that can be debated, but I think raising the cap in the short run to another level, I think, is an easy fix to some of our issues.
Should the federal minimum wage be increased, and why or why not, and how much?
Yes, Judith, I'm okay with increasing the minimum wage, but let's pay attention to the details. One size does not fit all in this world. And so what the minimum wage in Pennsylvania, in the rural districts, counties that are in the 9th district, is not going to be the same minimum wage that you would need to sustain your job in New York City or San Francisco, for that matter. I think somewhere in the ballpark of $12 an hour. We haven't had an increase in many years in the minimum wage. And whatever we do, when we get to a number that we all can agree upon, it needs to be pegged to a COLA, which is a cost of living adjustment, so that we don't have to come back and revisit this. But Gary Wegman, I'm not going to be about about focusing on the minimum wage as much as I want to bring living wage jobs to our communities.
Equal pay for equal work has been the law of the land since 1963. Yet there remains a wage gap between males and females and between majority and minority populations. Does more need to be done? Explain.
Absolutely. I have a wife and 2 daughters that are counting on me as their legislator to advocate on behalf of all people that a fair wage is given for equal work. And so we need to have the law have some teeth in it and enforce that where we see disparities and discrepancies that are called to the attention by people filing suits, for example, that they have the backing of the power of the government to enforce equal wage for equal work.
What federal policies will you pursue to provide equity and opportunity for all Americans, including the many groups that have been historically disadvantaged?
Well, I think healthcare, again, is a big issue, because if we all have access to the same high quality of healthcare, right now we have a multi-tiered system. You're a veteran, you're on Medicare, you're on Medicaid, you have fee-for-service, you have an indemnity plan, there's PPOs. There's such a myriad of confused coverage that we don't pay for services. We pay based on the types of coverage that we have. And that's completely unfair and should be illegal. We also need to look at how our schools in America are funded. We need per capita equality in funding. So whether you go to school in the city of Reading or go to school in one of the suburban schools or a rural school, everybody has the same amount of resources per student to be able to provide the teaching that we need to do. And I have some structural ideas of changing schools that I would like to bring forth. I'd like to start school at age 4 rather than age 6.
How do we avoid tariff wars and open new markets for American businesses and farmers?
Well, let's see where you are here.
That was on number 12.
At the very end of the page.
Yes.
Okay, well, we have to work with our allies, Judith. I mean, nobody doubted that the Chinese were taking advantage of the World Trade Organization, and they were taking advantage of it not just with Americans, but with Brazilians, Argentinians, our allies in Western and Eastern Europe. We all had the same problems with the Chinese, and we should have aligned our allies such that when we called out the China government on their practices, we all would have stood in unison, and they couldn't have thrown the farmer under the bus because they couldn't buy their soybeans or other products and commodities from anybody else. To work together is the way to get things done, and we need to build on common ground with our allies and within our own nation.
What is your plan to upgrade and maintain infrastructure, and how would you fund it?
Well, I would like to see us build out America just like we saw the Eisenhower administration do in the 1950s. We haven't seen an infrastructure investment program like that in over 60, 70 years. We need to leverage the inexpensive money that the Fed is currently lending. And we can get a 4 to 1, return on investment by investing in our bridges, in our rail, in processing plants, and building facilities that can provide the medications that Americans need to use and the PPE that we require and other commodities that we're using here. We don't need to let these companies go outside our borders to make this. We can make this all at home here and be competitive in our pricing.
The U.S. Voting Rights Act of 1965 allowed the Justice Department to review proposed state laws to assure no citizen would be deprived of their vote. Significant portions have been dismantled or expired and not reinstated. Would you reinstate the 1965 Voting Rights Act? Explain.
Yeah, I have a big issue with this Voting Rights Act and the dilemma that we have surrounding it. We have to advocate for all Americans to have a level playing field. And I think the more that we can do to empower people to be able to exercise their right to vote, the better for our democracy. So I'm very thankful for the Pennsylvania legislature to have brought forth Act 77, which allowed Pennsylvanians to vote by mail, but we can go better. We have biometric technologies to verify who you are. Why can't you vote from home, possibly electronically on a computer, by verifying your vote with your eye biometric or a thumbprint or something of the such, and then have a two-step or three-step verification process over a course of several days to verify that you weren't under duress when you placed your vote. I think it can be done. Anything we can do to allow more people to vote from the privacy and health of their home and be able to vet their candidates. And, Judith, I'd like to take a moment. You mentioned something earlier about voting immediately when you get your ballots. I would advocate for people to wait a little bit and watch programs like this and vet your candidates first. Get to know your candidates before you mail that in. Too many Pennsylvanians and Americans are hunkering down into their partisan corners, and they're not listening to good ideas from good candidates. So I would encourage everybody, get to know your candidates' positions first, either on the internet or on programs like this, before you make your choices and mail that out so quickly. Thank you for that extra moment. Please.
Thank you. Videos of police brutality have brought racism to the forefront of discussions. What role can federal law play to end police brutality and racism?
Well, tone matters. okay? And leaders have to recognize how important what they say and how they say it influences and impacts other people from taking law into their own hands. And we've seen some of the consequences of this, of misguided individuals trying to undertake and enforce and advocate the laws from their own perspective. So we really need our leaders to respect the power of their pulpit, so to speak. And the federal government also brings a lot of money to bear to states and local municipalities, and we have to leverage those resources to make sure that our local law enforcement entities are getting what they need in order to be able to protect the constituents that they are charged to do.
In your opinion, what is the cause of gun violence in our country, and what is the role of federal legislation?
Well, the federal government can do a lot here to help. The sad reality is most of gun violence is sadly self-inflicted. And we just saw a tragedy like this week in Lancaster County. We need to improve our healthcare system and provide more resources for mental health services. For one, that would go a long way. I would support the red flag laws that are being discussed so that if somebody is acting out and threatening and being a danger to their family, themselves, or to their neighbors, that weapons can be removed from that household until such a time that that individual proves that they're no longer a danger. And lastly, we need a 50-state solution to our background check laws so that anybody with a history of violence has no longer an opportunity to own or to purchase a weapon. And it can't just be a Pennsylvania law. It has to be a 50-state solution so that things that happen in one state can't cross our border because it's on a different playing field. This is something that we're all going to have to agree upon is no longer a states' rights issue, but something that the national government has to agree upon.
The United States pulled out of the World Environmental Alliance, the Kyoto Accords. Should we be back in it?
Air does not stop at the border. Water does not stop at a man-made border. We're all interconnected. How can we possibly think that we don't belong at the table in Paris or with the Kyoto Accords or working in concert with all of our friends and neighbors and enemies on this issue? We need to create and become good stewards of a better planet Earth. And to do that for our future children and grandchildren is another strong reason why I want to serve the people of the 9th District in Congress. I plan on advocating for sustainable energy because I value it as a national security position.
Agriculture counts for about half Berks County's economy. Our local farmers are adapting as much as possible to changes in the climate. Should the federal government address climate change to protect agriculture?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do to provide incentives to our ag community, and make no mistake about it, agriculture is our largest industry in this 9th District. So we have to use the federal government to help incentivize some new investment to move things to where the puck is going, so to speak, rather than where the puck's been. Farmers have a lot of terrain sometimes that is unsuitable for growing crops, but they could grow energy with solar panel arrays or wind turbines. And these products should be and can be manufactured right here in Pennsylvania. So I want to bring infrastructure investment to fabricate the next generation of energy production and put it up on our farms such that we can diversify our energy grid and allow our farmers to subsidize some of their income with unsuitable land for farming and be able to grow energy on that. We have low-cost energy in Pennsylvania, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the planet or to the rest of the country, and our farmers can leverage that to build these solar panel arrays. Thank you.
We only have time for quick answers at this point.
Okay.
What, if any, steps should our nation take to reform current immigration policies?
Yes, let's get DACA done and get these children that are now adults part of the United States fabric, have them become citizens and pay and be able to be employed in living wage jobs and be able to pay back their student loans and be part of our society. The other 11 million should be allowed a pathway to citizenship. They're going to have to get in the back of the line. We'll have to figure that out. But we have them here. They're living here. They're working here. Let's get them out of the shadows and paying taxes and on to the government payroll. Excuse me, paying into the government payroll, not on the government payroll. Thank you.
People rely on the U.S. Postal Service. Do you think it should function on a strictly business model or as a public service? Explain.
Boy, recently the issues surrounding our Postal Service have really come to the fore. As a rural community, we rely on the U.S. Postal Service and the good men and women who work there to bring us medications, checks, to pay our bills in a timely manner. This is not something that functions on a strictly business manner. If we allow for that to happen, it will go away because the Postal Service workers have told me they can break even, but they can't make profit to pay for shareholders and the perks of a for-profit industry. So we need, this is a constitutional right, guaranteed in the Constitution. We need to think about it with good, efficient business practices, yes, but at the end of the day, this is a service to the people of the United States, something that we all own and provide to ourselves.
We have increased our deficit due to the pandemic. How do you suggest we dig ourselves out of this hole?
By building. We build ourselves out of it, just like the Eisenhower administration did with an interstate roadway system. They're leveraging money at less than 1% for lending from bank to bank. Our government has to come nonpartisan together on infrastructure investment and bring these living wage jobs to repair our roadways, our bridges, to reinvigorate rail travel for passenger services in and out of the 9th District. Passenger rail started in the 9th District. We surely should have it here again today. This is an economic improvement program. It's an economic development program. It's not just about passenger rail. We can build ourselves out of this and return 4 to 1 on that investment. Let's do it. Let's start spending money on ourselves for a change. We just spent $20 million over the past, $6 million over the past 20 years overseas. Let's start spending money on America at home. For me, that would be putting America first.
We have about 30 seconds left. You may make a closing comment.
Well, I want to say that in talking with all the people of the 9th District, they are really fed up and tired of the politics of division. The Democrats try to take down the president at his every move. The Republicans won't bring legislation up on the floor of the Senate to debate it on the merits for a fair hearing. I am going to act in a nonpartisan manner to address the real issues that are before us here in the 9th District. We need to start getting ourselves wrapped around good ideas, and I think that the public will back me on this because we're tired of this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Wegman, and thank you for watching Candidates Up Front.
Thank you very much for having me.